Hey everyone, I know a lot of you are watching this on the recording, but for the next 27 minutes, we're going to go over something that we do every quarter, and that is set our targets, our commitments, and the things that we want to be doing to get us the results that we want. So if you are watching this on recording, have a question, just keep a note of it and then fire it over on email or in one of our group chats. Before we kick things off, I'm going to share a quick video, and if you've been on these before, then you will have seen this video. It's a minute and 15 seconds long, and it is super, super important that you watch this video.
You do these three things, your life will be way better. So the first thing that I do is there's an old Japanese ritual called the misogi. And the notion around a misogi is you do one year defining thing every year. Something that like you can look back on. You probably don't even know what you do 8 days ago, but you sure as hell should be able to say, in 2022, I launched a podcast. I quit smoking. There should be one big thing that's going to really define my year. The second thing that I do is something that I call Kevin's rule. Kevin is a friend of mine, blue collar guy, the happiest guy that I know. Kevin and I take our 8-year-old kids to climb Mount Washington in the winter. How often do you do stuff like this? And he lights up. He goes, oh, ever since I graduated college, every other month, do something I normally wouldn't have done. I said, that's unbelievable. He said, yeah. I said, well, why do you do it? He said, because if you create 6 mini adventures every year and you're 40 years old and you live to be 80, that's 240 things that you wouldn't have had in your life, events or mini adventures that you just create. Third thing is I add a winning habit every quarter, 10-minute a day meditation practice. Maybe I'm never going to be late to a meeting. But if you add 4 new habits at the end of 2023, 6 mini adventures and a killer experience, and you repeat that for the rest of your life, you won life if you do that.
So we've covered this before about having a misogi, and it's something that everyone should have at the beginning of a year. Going into a new year with a misogi is really, really important. And towards the end of the workshop, this isn't just about me talking. You're going to be doing things in a second, and that's important as well. Now, some bits to cover. So you're on this or you're watching this as a recording because you want to be better in some way, and that's a fact. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here and you wouldn't be taking the time out to watch the recording. If you've been on these sessions before and you feel like, well, I've done this before, I know what I should be doing, but I'm not doing it, then here's the invitation is to not put so many things down on your list and really simplify it or get super clear on what you actually want. And maybe once you've done all the writing exercises that you go back over it and you actually ask yourself, is that what you want? Because if you've done this a couple of times now and not got the results you want, then there's something missing. And also with that, if you are working towards something that you do want and you are struggling, then also having like the audacity to just try it again. So if you've tried it 5 years on the bounce and not done it, then who's to say the sixth time isn't the time that you finally crack it? We have clients who've been with us for a long time, and it takes a while for things to hit home or habits to embed before they get the big shifts and just feel completely different. So like I said, it's not just me talking at you through this. I wanted to do exercise. I made a promise that one, I'd be done within the 30 minutes, and two, that if you do the work that you set out to and follow it all up, then you'd have more results in the first 90 days of the year than you have the past year. So the last year, here's the first exercise that I wanted to start thinking on is the fact the last year about think it's gone quickly. And people say at times moving faster. If I was to say to you, though, give me 4, 5 things that have gone well or has happened this year, a lot of people wouldn't be able to because they're just so in things and things are just moving and passing all the time. That's why time feels like it's going really quick. So your first exercise is to look back at this last year, but not from an attached state. So what I'd like you to do is to think about like a bird's eye view on your last year and just write down things that have happened and nothing else. Don't go into any detail or attach any emotion to them. I just wanted to list things that have got on. Now, we're going to set minute timers for this. If you want to take longer to it, put a star next to the question on the paper and come back to it and fill it out when you've got longer. But the reason why you've got a minute is because things will flow. And as soon as your pen hits the paper or you're typing, you've only got a short space of time to cram it in. And it works really, really well. So the first minute is just reflecting on the last year, but not going into super big detail and depth, looking at it from like an outsider's view and just saying, this happened, that happened, this happened. So there's a minute going on the clock, and I want you to do that. Off we go. If you're not sure, just put a little star next to it and you can come back to it later, but the minutes normally work well. Okay, so there's a minute. Remember, it's tough to do, but try and not get too bogged down the detail and the emotions around it. It's just making a list of things that have gone on. Otherwise, it's quite easy for another year to pass us by before we've realized how much we've actually got done. And when you list it, you can see that you might think I've had a quiet year, I've been busy in work, nothing's really happened. When you can start to list out all the events that have gone on, you'd probably be surprised that they were still in this year that they happened and not last year. And when we go into planning in a bit, it's really important. It's like you'll get from doing that exercise then that things can just become a blur and just be happening all the time, like I said, until we actually plan for things or remember or reflect on things that we've done or achieved, which is why we do the wins in the groups because that's super important. Now, this year ahead, so there's a term that floats around about the new year, and that's what we want. We want a new year. We don't want just another year where we attempt to try and do the stuff that we did last year, or we set some resolutions, which I'll go into in a bit. This is a new year where we accept that things will be different. We can set our aspirations higher and we can dream a bit bigger on what we want. But then later on in the workshop, we're going to be doing the actions that we need to be doing to get those results. And with your years as well, like these years aren't free. Like you don't get free passes or bonus ones when you hit a certain level. They all count. So I wanted to take this 2025 little goal setting target project setting exercise really, really serious and have some big meaningful things to tackle in the year ahead. So the next exercise, minute on the clock. The question is simple. If we were to look at things that we enjoy doing, like vitamins, so you take your vitamins daily because they help you, what do you have that you enjoy doing that has the same effect as a vitamin? So, what are your vitamins? So, for example, being outside, chilling, reading a book, seeing people, having a coffee. What I want to do in the next minute is to list the things that are your vitamins. 1 minute. If you're not sure, just put your hand up. But these are the things that make you feel good, to leave you feeling good. And if you had a list you could just go to, and you know it could make things easier or better, just like the vitamins would. These are your vitamins, things that leave you feeling good. And I'll explain why we have those in a second. But that is the minute again. If you're doing the exercise, you need more time to come back to it, and just give yourself some time after this to go back to it. So life without the vitamins, the pills that people have is pretty grim. And it's the same if we don't have things to look forward to, or we know what eases our worries, our stresses, makes us feeling good, and just leaves us feeling good as well. So it's important that we've got a list of those, because we're going to go to an exercise later on and pop in them into our diary. Because a lot of what people struggle with is putting themselves on top of the pile and as a priority, because they can't say no to people and won't say yes to themselves. So if you've got a diary packed with loads of fun things and stuff that you need to do, then it's much easier for you to say no to others, because your reason is pretty simple. I've got something on, it's a no. So the next little exercise we've got, we're going to fire through these now until the end of the session. So these are going to be 1 minute exercises, quick exercises, planning, projecting for next year. So we've already done the review from last year. What I want to spend the next bit on is a win from last year. Well, this year. So I wanted to list the biggest win from this year. It could be something that happened last week. It could be something that happened today. It could be something that happened in January. I wanted to spend a minute just searching for a win in 2024. Off we go. 1 minute. This can be anything. I want this to be quite a big win for you, and what's a big win for you might not necessarily be a big win for someone else, but that doesn't matter. Could be starting something, could be ending something, it could be hitting something. This one will either come really, really easily or be a bit of a challenge. And if you don't have anything, again, I'd want you to spend time finding this. It's easy to say nothing's gone well. It's hard to sit there and find a win. And you don't have to share this with anyone, so you can put down whatever you like, but you have to have a win. And the other question is, if you really, really, really struggling with one, how are you going to find one in the next 10 days before the year's up? Okay, that's a minute. So we go into the next question. So not a resolution, like I said, we're not making resolutions. We're making a change. We're doing something. We're not having a short-term little fix that we'll do until it gets boring. So one thing I wanted to write down here within the minute, there's two things to this. The first one is, what are you sick of? And then the second bit is, what do you want? And there's two different questions there. So 30 seconds on each question. What are you sick of and what do you want? A minute on the clock. Sick of, tired of doing, fed up with. And then the flip of that is, what do you want? Sometimes it's quite nice to write down one word and then later on sit with them and go through in more detail, but have something, or at least a reminder to come back to. Okay, next minute on the clock. So, what do you want? And then the question from that is, how does the person who already has that act? So you've got a minute just to jot these down. So if you've put a target that you'd want or something that you really like, the next exercise is, what does the person who already has that do, act? What are they up to? We've got a minute here. About 30 seconds before we move on to the next question. If you're watching this on a recording and want to spend a bit longer with each question, just pause it as you go along. You can do. Okay, next question to answer. Sticking with the minutes for this. So what's a habit that you want to tackle this year? This can be anything. This can be something that serves you, doesn't serve you, something new, ending one, creating something. The minute started. What's a habit for you in 2025 that you want to tackle, whether it's starting, building, getting rid of? What is it? And this is where we start to build some real power within our targets and goals. We got 10 more seconds. Okay, if you want to record and just pause it. Otherwise, if you're doing this live, just make a note of it so you can come back to it later on if you want to go into a bit more depth on this. Okay, the last question for the year, and then we're going to start going really granular with this. So the Misogi video I shared, like what's a Misogi for you? What do you want from this year? The dead easy way to think about this is like the year defining thing. Like, what are you going to do in 2025? You can look back in a couple of years and know straight away, like, 2025 was the year I did. 2025 was the year that I stopped doing. I created. I started up. Really, really, really tricky question, this, but it should be one thing. And if you aren't sure, write the word Misogi with a question mark. But I've been doing this for probably the last 9, 10 years. And then when I seen this video a couple of years ago, really made things a lot easier. Like having one year defining thing, like even if you just got that one thing done next year, they'd make your year. It's really, really good to have this. Super clear, super defined. Makes it a lot easier to stay on track over the 12 months. So it doesn't have to be something at the end of the year. It could be something during the year. So like mine for next year is June time, so it's not even the full year. Okay, minutes up. So we're going to start go. We've got big ideas of what we don't want, what we do want, maybe traits that we need to pick up and who we need to become and be doing more of. And then we've got the habit we want to tackle, start, or create. And then we've got the Misogi, so the 1 year defining thing. So now this is where it gets dead interesting because we can start speeding things up because we know exactly what we need, or sorry, what we want, and now we can plan what we need to do. So I want you to forget about the whole 12 months now. We're going to work in a 90-day block because we're going to work for the first quarter of next year. And I want you to build a 90-day plan of action. And I've got on my notes here, boring with loads and loads and loads of G's on the end, because some of the things you're going to start writing down now are not going to be fancy and sexy and all of this and like, whoa, like mind blowing when you're telling people that you're going to start eating dust for years and drinking water that's off the top of Mount Everest or something like that. What I want you to pick and just get serious on is the smaller things that you need to be doing. So your 90-day plan of action starts with what do you want to see happen in 90 days? So in the first 3 months of the year, what changes do you want to see happen? Off we go. And that can be something that you had set as long term that you want faster. Where do you want to be at in 90 days? And try not to just put like lose 7 pounds. Let's have something a bit more with it, or maybe it's a couple of things that you want. Again, we've got a minute. If you're stuck or whatever, you can just shout out. Okay, 20 seconds to go. This is a 90 day. So we've got the thing, and now we're breaking it down to smaller chunks, and we're going to keep doing that. Okay, the next bit for the 90 days is the I will sentence. So what are you going to do in the next 90 days? That's a question that I want you to answer. Now, I've got an example here, just as Snowdon, because it's a really simple one and easy one to explain. over the next 90 days, I will climb Snowdon, for example. I don't want you to necessarily pick that because I said it, but that's what it needs to be around. Something that you can do, something you can tick off at some point over 90 days or at the end of 90 days, but you need something. We've got the year defining thing as a Misogi. We need something for the 90 days. What is that going to be? Timer is on, it's a minute. Easy way to answer this is uh, over the next 90 days, I will, or I will have achieved in the next 90 days, dot, 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 and just finish the sentence. If you struggle with the answers, use the sentences like that. So within the next 90 days, I will have. And again, this could be anything. And walk up Movamai over the next 90 days, whatever. Ideally, it'd be doing something physical or having something that you can tick off just the once, because we can work up towards that as well. Okay, you got another 10 seconds. Again, if you're not sure, make a little mark next to it and come back, but don't just make marks next to it and don't come back to it. Okay, the next question then, we're going down to 30 days now. What is the one boring thing that you're going to do every single day for 30 days? Now, this is where it gets into more of the doing. So it could be a 5-minute meditation, getting up at a set time for 30 days, drinking X amount of water, eating X amount of food. Whatever it is, you do not deviate from this at all. This is your one thing to do every day for 30 days. You are in charge of this and you choose it. So if you pick something really fancy and then you get to the first weekend and you can't keep it up, then it's on you. Don't pick something that you can't do for 30 days. It should be a bit of a stretch and a challenge, but it's also going to be something simple. There's a minute on the clock. What is the one boring thing that you're going to do every single day for 30 days? 5 pieces of veg, meditate daily, work out daily, hit my steps daily, no alcohol, hit my water intake. All of these things now, the doings, what's the most boring one that you can keep up for 30 days? January the 1st, right up until the last day in Jan. This one is actually really, really, really important. If you know you can't do it for 30 days, don't put it down. If it's a little bit of a struggle, put it down. Don't set yourself up to fail and don't be just doing this Monday to Friday. This is 30-day. And there's a massive thing with this that if you're able to prove to yourself you can do something for 30 days, how much more self-belief and trust will you have going on to other things? Okay, the minute's up. So we've now got a 90-day plan of action where we'll cover one thing, like your little mini Misogi, and also we've got the one thing that we're going to do every single day from January the 1st up until the end of Jan. And then the next bit is the commitment for the first 7 days in January. So what does this even look like? What I want to do for the next minute, start the clock now, is to pop down your 7-day commitment. I'm not even going to give you any little things to help you with this, like any points. I want you to just note this down. 7 days, 1st of Jan up until the 7th, 8th of Jan. What's your commitment for that week? That covers the weekend. It covers the first days back in work. It covers the last days being off. What is your commitment to yourself that you're going to do, get done, carry on with, or start? Here we've got 15 seconds to go. Again, if you're not sure, don't rush it and just chuck anything down. Leave a note and come back to it. Okay, so sticking with my promise, 2 of them. Got one more question to go, and I'm going to leave you with that to finish on. So, just as a overhaul of what we've done, this does not need, I've tried to keep this as simple and as plain as we can because it does not need to be another thing that takes up a big part of our bandwidth and our mental capacity. You need to keep this simple. I know exactly what I want from next year. I know pretty much what I need to be doing. I've got a 90-day target that is towards that. and I can do the work in 30 days that almost transports me to 90 days even quicker. So the last question that I've got for you, I'll let you know in a second. Do the work, go back to these. Don't just write this down and leave it to one side. And then when you clear your drawers out and all that in January, you find, oh yeah, I did this. Don't do it. Most of what we did is the same thing we did last 30 days, last 90 days. It's also the same thing that we did a year ago. It's also the same thing a year ago. There's repetition and it's simple. Do the work and get really, really specific on what you want and make sure it is something that you want. So the last question, just sticking to my timings of wrapping this up in 30 minutes as a promise. The other promise is if you do the work, the basic boring things for the 7 day commitment and the 30 days, you'll start getting incredible changes and results. Imagine if we were sat here now going through an audit and a review of everything you've done this year, and you'd kept up two things for 350 days of I've drank 2 liters of water every single day, and I've ate 5 pieces of veg. Two really, really, really small things. If you're able to keep those up every single day for the last 350 days, it breeds a lot, of change. And that's what I want to get excited about for this year ahead, is that you can have exactly that. So, my final question for you is a word. I'm going to leave you with this to finish on. I'm going to close down the recording. If you've got any questions for me or whatever, send them over in the groups, email me, text me, whatever, ask one of us in the studios. The last question for you, take a little bit longer, go over some of the other questions as well, is your word for the year. So, what is the one word for the year ahead? And that's what I'm going to leave you with. Don't just close down the screen and leave this and go. Sit with what you've written, read over it to make sure it's clear. And if you want to go in depth any more on it, do so. But your final question before leaving is that what is the word for 2025? One word.